Hello and welcome back, everyone, to our 6-week Skillful Living program. My name is Venerable Tarpa, and I'm very, very excited to be here and sharing the program. This is our 5th week and our 9th class of the program. Boy, we are moving through it. We only have this week and next week. And I hope everybody's enjoying the program as much as I'm enjoying sharing it with everyone. Um, I'm not sure if everybody knows that I practice it with you all, right? We're all practicing it as a Sangha together. Every time we share this program, I teach it, and at the same time throughout the week, I'm practicing it with you. And I just find every time I do it, I get greater and greater benefit. And probably the greatest benefit, it all starts to trickle down to our default mindset. And you just find that you really just start to embody these qualities and practices. And that's when it becomes exciting, when it's really changing your mind and your habitual behaviors. Hey, this week we're going to be exploring the skillful living lifestyle, and which is near and dear to my heart. I wrote this and I'm excited to share it with you. But before we do so, like usual, let's review a little bit of what we learned last week. So, last week we had a bit of a heavy subject, understanding our suffering. And many people said that they didn't find it heavy at all, they found it deeply inspiring. But we talked about the power of understanding and acceptance to transcend our suffering. Then throughout the week, we practiced disidentifying with our afflictions and limitations, while also disidentifying others from their afflictions and limitations, which is a powerful, powerful practice. We also engaged in the practice of trust as an antidote to worry and insecurities. I should add that the practice of trust is an SPT practice. Does anyone have any questions about last week's practices? Miss Wamo, please.
Yeah, could you talk a little bit about objective distance?
Oh, I'd love to. So, this is related to presence. And we talked about this way back in lesson week 2 when we were talking about the threefold path um, and working with our awareness. So the idea is that most of us aren't aware just how how close to reality we all exist, right? And it's almost like we live with our faces smashed up against the glass of reality. Everything we experience is so close, so immediate. Do you know the feeling that everything, you watch the news and everything is so important and immediate, and oh my God, we have to do something today to do this. Global warming is going to kill us tomorrow. Everything is just so intense. And in our personal life as well, you have a simple problem at work, and what are we thinking? We're catastrophizing. Oh, I'm going to get fired for this or that. This is the way we deal with we relate to reality, where but it's an exaggeration. And the Dalai Lama often likes to point out that this idea of samsara, of habitual uh, mundane existence is a good translation, is nothing but this kind of exaggeration of reality, of seeing everything as bigger than it is, more important, more immediate, right? More dangerous, more insecure. And the idea is that when you start to work with it, you start to realize most of that's a mental projection. That's not really reality. And then we learn how to kind of back away from it. So we call this objective distance. Now, the easiest way to talk about objective distance is we all know doctors have this practice of objective, they call it professional distance, in which a physician knows not to get too intimately involved with a patient in order for them to be more objective, right? And if they're overly compassionate, they might lose the rationale to do a good job. Parenting is the other great example, right? You can't just hover over your children and do everything for them. There needs to be some distance between parent and child for the child to become self-reliant, to be able to do problem solving on their own. So, and let's go deeper than that. The fact is, we all use objectivity or objective distance to deal with all the aspects of our lives. It's even in the language we use. We say a close friend or a distant relative. This idea of distance, we purposefully keep pleasant uh, situations, experiences close, and we clearly push away those experiences we don't like, right? So we do it with people, we do it with situations, we even do it with time, right? We don't want to talk about aging and don't want to talk about dying, right? And so we use this idea of distance in everything we do. In Buddhism, we call it objective distance. And in Buddhism, so we take it a step further, let alone dealing with distance in our regular lives between situations and people. We apply it directly to reality itself, to all of reality. And just by gently stepping back and creating some space in order to respond sensibly instead of irrationally react, it's a space for wisdom and skill to be applied. Now, we're not talking about disconnecting or detachment from the world. We want to be engaged. We are. We're talking about a little sliver of a distance, just a teeny distance, like that little distance you have with that one sibling that's problematic, right? You don't call them quite as much as you call the other ones. Just a little bit of distance between us and reality. And it's always up to you how much you want. In fact, we talk. We're going to be talking about it today. Like you judge that distance. So when you're at work and coworkers want to know about your life, you share, but you keep a little distance there. You don't want them to know everything. But when you're playing with your kids, you're wrestling on the floor, no distance is needed, right? You can really experience that. So it's always up to you. But the idea is to master that skill and use distance as a master to organize your life, to be skillful in the way you deal with life. That was a long answer. I'm sorry. Was that okay? Okay. I'm going to get right to our teachings. Okay. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed and saw the power of understanding, accepting uh, our suffering. You know, very first thing we do in anything in Buddhism is to understand it, regardless of whether the qualities, whether the problems with people. First thing we do is we become present, but then we try to understand it the best we can and then accept it the best we can. And then we had this idea of disidentifying ourselves and others from our afflictions. To me, that is gold. When I disidentify people from their afflictions, I stop blaming all the people in the world for just being human beings. When we talk about humans suffering um, from shared human limitations, right? Shared, we all share the same limitations. All humans have limitations, are afflictions. So it's kind of funny. We go through life, in a sense, blaming everybody for being human. We go through blaming people for having afflictions. Everybody has them. And surely sometimes people need them pointed out, right? If somebody's acting poorly, you have to say, hey, take down your anger. But the idea of blaming people for these very, very human qualities, or more importantly, afflictions, is is one of the problems we have. When you stop blaming people, when you accept that people are acting out of these very human afflictions, life becomes more manageable. You know where to direct your efforts in improving the situation, right? Eh, Okay, with that said, so today's class is going to be another one that's a study and practice mix, today and tomorrow's uh, classes, because they're kind of unique. Again, we're going to be exploring the skillful living lifestyle. I think it's a bit of a lighter topic, but I think very intriguing and very beneficial. I believe the topic of style, lifestyle, or style itself is a crucial aspect of our lives, an aspect that we greatly undervalue, especially in the spiritual path. So, we study, we practice, we do good deeds, we weigh the values and benefits of our actions, but often we ignore the style, manner, or even attitude in which we perform them, while those subtle nuances of our true intentions and behaviors often remain hidden to most of us. Um, Here I'm suggesting not only being aware of our intentions, behaviors, and actions, but to take it a step further and become aware of the manner or style in which we engage with them, and in particular, the style in which we live our lives. In other words, not just being mindful of washing the dishes, but taking a step further and becoming mindful of the style in which we wash the dishes. Are we skillful? Are we sloppy? Are we enjoying the experience, or are we irritated? Questions of style occur to me often when I'm teaching. In teaching, it's not so much what you teach that makes the strongest impact on your audience, but much of the time it's how you teach, the style in which you share the information, and how you make the audience feel. Um, and so the idea of style in practice, when we wake up, we say our affirmations. We're all doing our affirmations every morning. So we're doing them and we're proud of ourselves. We're very happy when we did them. We feel good. But did we take any time at all to think about the style in which we said our affirmations? Did we rush through them thinking about all kinds of other things instead of focusing? Or did we take our time, really try to enjoy it, embody it, and really pay attention to what we're saying? This is the idea of style. So when we think about style as our approach to life, we can look at the way an example would be the way people generally characterize Buddhist practitioners, right? Believing that we possess a style of calmness, gentleness, and peace, right? I think that's generally the image that comes up when you tell someone you're a Buddhist, because they love to point it out when you're not. Um, and this is also true with Buddhist monks. When you imagine a Buddhist monk, and you imagine someone who's gentle, has a graceful style, um, and they engage with the world in that way. So this is more about the style in which we actually engage with the world. So we could call that lifestyle. In my travels, I had the opportunity to meet and study with many of today's great Buddhist masters, the Dalai Lama, the Karmapa, many Zen Theravada masters. I found that these accomplished masters all seem to share a similar style, exhibiting a subtle, expansive awareness, a great sense of ease, uh, maybe you could call it a gentle confidence, and a graceful and peaceful style of being. And later, I condensed these qualities down to just one single word. To me, I believe them to be soft. I thought this quality was a softness that embodied all those qualities. And when I say that these great masters were soft, what I mean is they possessed a natural grace, exuding mindful awareness in every intention, every word, every deed, what can be referred to as awakened behavior. The Dalai Lama is the greatest example of it. This, this soft, natural grace and lucid awareness just permeates from him in everything he does, intentions, words, gestures, his behavior and grace. It was clear that this was something that they had attained throughout a lifetime of dedicated study and practice. This soft quality can be seen in can be also seen in skilled martial artists and artisans. In martial arts, softness like this does not mean weakness, but rather it reflects a mastery of precision, timing, and flow, allowing the practitioner to move with effortless power and subtle control. And similarly, artisans, whether they're painters, musicians, craftsmen, they also express this kind of gentle, soft strength within their work. In all these cases, this softness is a mark of deep awareness and discipline, a harmony between intention and action that radiates a quiet confidence, grace, and ease. So, with that, one day it kind of came to me and occurred to me, what if we focus directly on the cultivation of softness? Could we, I was thinking, maybe a shortcut, right? Could we create a direct path to that subtle awareness, grace, and equanimity that are its byproducts? So, and that's what led to some of these practices. I define soft as, I have a meme for you, a slide. Soft is calm, spacious, and gentle. It's expansive, aware, and accepting. It's flexible, adaptive, and resilient. It's patient, considerate, and compassionate. Soft is a style and attitude towards life, the spirit in which we work, play, and love. Soft is a state of being, to abide in a subtle and open awareness. Soft is the result of practice, the attainment of true peace and contentment. Soft is beautiful, encompassing the best of human thought, speech, behavior, and action. And with that said, I defined the opposite, and I couldn't think of a good word, so we just went with hard, but it didn't seem like the proper opposite. Hard is rigid, aggressive, and ignorant, stubborn, unyielding, and adaptive, dense, coarse, and limited, while lacking empathy, understanding, and sophistication. As I as I read those illustrations or definitions, Do any of your do you know people that match those descriptions? To me, I see it very strongly in people, right? I have friends that are so considerate and compassionate and soft, right? And then I can think of quite a few people from the old days who were quite hard, rigid, especially people from prior generations. Some of the men could be just stubborn and unyielding. Oh, so lovely. It's long been assumed that humanity's survival was due primarily to our intelligence and our ability to use tools. That's what they taught me in elementary school. Probably a lot of you the same thing. However, fascinatingly, today anthropologists instead place the success of human survival instead on our skills of adaptation and cooperation. Isn't that fascinating? Skills that allow humans to strive and flourish from the Amazon jungles to the Arctic tundra. Human beings flourish all over this planet. And interestingly, the skills of adaptation and cooperation are very much soft skills. Well, this sheds new light on what makes us strong as a species. In this context, it seems we should be approaching our lives not as warriors, but instead as acrobats, not resisting and battling life, but instead to skillfully move with life, adapting with its flow. My father raised me, who is a wonderful man, by the way, but older generation, tough, a little bit stubborn, unyielding, pretty hard, but loving. Um, my father raised us to survive life. This was very, very clear. His job was to toughen us up, to give us a good work ethic so we could survive life. But I think we can do better than that as a species. I think we can do more than just teach our kids how to survive. I think in the modern age, we actually can teach our kids to flourish in life, right? The idea of my father teaching us to flourish in life, that's very foreign when I think about my father. But I think more awakened parents, more progressive parents actually do such a thing. Because today survival is not about battling tigers. Instead, it's about surviving stressful work environments, complex relationships, and mental and physical illness. For most of us, our material needs are met, and survival is about surviving our anxiety, our emotions, our desires, and fears. In other words, today, survival is about surviving our own minds and projected reality. Have you ever thought of that? Think about it. Think how many uh, deaths are related to relationships we have, let alone, the how about the passing away of someone that we love, or the end of a relationship, let alone people committing suicide, but also people just getting very sick after it because the toll it takes on us. Um, and but it's true that nowadays survival really is about these more worldly things like anxiety, emotions, surviving our own minds and projected reality. And so that's exactly what Buddhism is out to fix, especially working with our perspective of life, right? Um, One obvious question arises when I give this talk, And it's the question, the very rational question, will cultivating softness diminish our ability to survive? And so a moment ago, we explained that it seems like research points to the fact that no, it would actually increase our potential for survival. But will softness prevent us from acting decisively when situations call for it? We can become soft, calm, peaceful people, but what happens when an emergency happens? Can we still act decisively? And the answer is yes. Abiding in softness should never be taken to the point of timidity, apathy, or indifference. The fact is that softness never prevents us from acting decisively when situations call for a strong, more direct, or even aggressive action. For like all things, softness exists within a spectrum. So, the example I just gave with softness, uh, playing with the kids, you can be as soft as you want to be, right? But maybe if you're a substitute teacher in front of a classroom of adolescents, you might be careful how soft you are. You might say, "Well, I need to be a little hard. I need to be a little tough in that situation." Um, or even in the sense we're talking about the spectrum of uh, softly protecting someone from an attack. All right, so you see someone being attacked and you want to act decisively. So softness doesn't stop that, but it might give you the wisdom to know that you don't have to overly attack the person with aggression, that there might be a softer way to do it, maybe just putting yourself in between it, hopefully not becoming part of it. But the point is using some wisdom instead of brawn to deal with the situation, right? Um, and of course, that goes along with self protection of yourself in daily life. Um, you can think of softness as we mentioned before, this kind of an idea of a dial of intensity that's adjustable, right? Depending on the situation and what level of softness is appropriate, right? So you have this intensity dial, and again, we use wisdom to look at the situation and apply softness with wisdom, right? It's not just a blanket softness. We're just going to become soft. Every situation calls for it. I think I often mention walking down a dark alley in the middle of the night. You might not want to be too soft. You might want to walk with a bit of a swagger and look tough so people don't bother you. These skills we're learning about here should be seen as new additions to your current toolbox of life techniques, skills that you can use as you see fit. Some skills are soft and intricate, others hard and forceful. Some are multifaceted, while others are specific. So, we're teaching you here, we're going to be teaching you some soft skills, but they just go in the toolbox. You decide for yourself when to use those tools. Any questions? What do you guys think about this idea of benefits of a soft style? You like it? David, please share.
Yeah, it just seems to me that the softness that you describe that's so beautiful and strong isn't just a single spectrum. That if you have more softness, then it could be in an inappropriate situation. It just seems to me that it's a different quality. I know it's the same word, but it seems to me different.
I
That's all.
like it. Yeah, the spectrum of quality as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
Good way of
excellent.
it.
Yeah, I agree. Wama?
Yeah, I really like the idea of softness reducing conflict and creating harmony. I've seen so many situations where you encounter them and how you react changes the outcome, of course, but just having a soft approach can take a situation that's way up here and bring it down to a manageable level. So yeah, I really like that idea of using it to reduce conflict.
It seems like a lesson that humanity's learning these days. Like when
Hmm.
you look at law enforcement, I know there's probably a lot of examples to where we fail, but I think modern law enforcement, this conflict resolution is being taught to all the officers. Where, boy, imagine 100 years ago, they were probably pretty brutal, tough guys. But now they're learning that, but again, a soft approach limits all of that and limits problems, troubles, right? Diffusing situations intelligently, quickly, in a better way. Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. And what do you think of the idea of is anything lost when we become soft? Do you think soft, do you see any downsides to it? You know, the idea is with our toolbox that I'm not telling you that you should do everything soft. I'm telling you, I'm sharing a tool with you to add to the toolbox to try it out, to see if you like it and to see if it works. All your other tools are still there. And so we're not saying to be soft in all situations. We're saying you have to use wisdom to find out which tools work best. Sometimes a sledgehammer is the absolute perfect tool for the job, but not in repairing watches. So our soft skills have finesse, they have intelligence, they have wisdom. You know. Sampo.
Yeah, you were asking the sort of question about sort of, I suppose, softness, and when I think about does it get in the way, I think I always have a fear that some people may sort of see it as a sign of weakness. It's just something that, growing up and, being Scottish, it's we're more hard than soft often, but softness is something that, I've had to really learn and concentrate on through Buddhism and don't always get it right. I would probably argue and say sometimes the negative hard side of things is partly an affliction. But one of the things that I do think that is interesting is when you approach something that you think about it, you plan it, you approach it well, and if you do it in a way where you have compassion, you have care, you should come across soft anyways. It's almost like a
Yeah.
natural thing that you show that that you're thinking about what you're doing, that you
And isn't it also about that intensity dial? So isn't it about picking the right softness for the right environment? So when you're out with your mates, maybe you want to make sure you're not too soft so they don't call you names. But then when you're home with your wife, you can really soften a lot. And you're also right about being clever. A soft person who's clever, he or she can easily step around those issues, right? Yeah. Thank you. Oh, Jan, please share.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with confidence. I was a nurse before I retired, and I just noticed that a lot of the admissions clerks that worked, where people come in and they had to take the insurance and get their name and their numbers and all that, a lot of them were very not soft, kind of hard with people, just, kind of had a wall between them and the people that came in. But I also noticed that it was the ones who were more confident in what they were doing that were softer. It's as if the more confident that you are, the more you can afford to be soft.
I agree. And then there's also the idea, I don't know if I get into this lesson or not. There's also the idea of soft that there's kind of a positive, productive, skillful softness. And then there's an afflicted softness, timidity. And that is really related to confidence. A really confident person can generate that skillful softness. And it takes intelligence. When you talk about hard, there's a real sense of ignorance to it. And not stupidity, but just a person that doesn't have any other skills. Like maybe with kids, especially young boys, we have to teach them to use words and not to act out and just emotionally, which is very hard, right? So, yeah, I think ignorance, self-confidence play into it as well. Oh, some great questions. You guys are awesome. And quite soft, I would say. It's a soft crowd. So, cultivating a soft style is to develop a wise, patient, and accepting approach to life. Softness arises naturally from our maturity, joy, compassion, and contentment, but can also be learned and cultivated. We soften by calming down, slowing down, cultivating patience, coming to terms with our needs and insecurities, and by letting go of our grasping. So we're going to talk a little bit about grasping. I'd like to try a little exercise to explain grasping and letting go. I want everybody to hold up one hand, and I want you to make a fist. Now I want you to squeeze that fist. Squeeze it harder, squeeze it really hard, okay? That's grasping, right? Now slowly begin to open up your hand. That's letting go. It's that simple. This is us in our daily lives, right? Who can relate to that? Who can relate to feeling this way at work or in traffic or when your parents visit you, right? And who can relate to when they decide it's late and they want to leave and they're going to go home? Ah, we just open up, the bell at work goes off and it's time to go home. Ah, it's really that basic. That's what really talking about with grasping and with letting go. Grasping is the compulsive need to obtain, possess, or protect that which we desire. That's a pretty good definition. This includes, when we grasp at everything, this includes grasping at views, beliefs, right? Desires, ideals, emotions. However, the most problematic is the way we grasp at identity, which includes our grasping at success, significance, and a sense of belonging. Those things that define our place in the world, uh, like our career, our education, possessions, and accomplishments, right? We grasp at, I have the latest iPhone, or we grasp at the way people look at us. And uh, so grasping arises from our speediness, our busyness, our exaggerated sense of immediacy, and our worries and insecurities. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Yes? That's grasping. That's what we do in life. Um, and you remember we talked about the idea of samsara, or mundane habitual existence. Is You can see it in the life of a 10-year-old child, right? When they're getting ready for school and they wake up with a pimple, or they don't have the same clothes that everybody, the hip new jeans that everybody's wearing, and they just think the world's over, right? They live in such an exaggerated world, right? and full of immediacy. I have to have this right now. I have to. And of course, we all know it's a deep, deep exaggeration of reality. We all know none of it's true. They go to school with a pimple. All the other kids get pimples too. It's not a big deal. In a handful of years, they won't even remember it. It's not that big. But this is how we grasp at everything. This speediness, busyness, exaggerated sense of immediacy. So we let go of our grasping by understanding everything we can about it, right? Again, here's that word, understanding. We talked about it last week. With Buddhists, it's the first thing we do to approach problems that we have. We try to understand everything we can about it. And we also, to reduce the grasping, is by calming down, slowing down, cultivating patience, and by softening. So, how do we let go of grasping? By letting go of those things that feed grasping. We just talked about grasping arises from our speediness, busyness, exaggerated sense of immediacy, worry, and insecurity. So by distancing ourselves, by reducing those qualities, by calming down, slowing down, cultivating patience, and being soft, we reduce that grasping. An image for you is, imagine that you're in an ocean and you can't swim. And out of fear of drowning, you instinctively begin to reach out and look to grasp at anything you believe will keep you afloat. Frustratingly, nothing does. Whatever you grab is too small, and you're continuing to sink. Um, you begin to sink, but then you let go of your fear and stop struggling. Suddenly you realize that you're buoyant and you can float. The grasping falls away and you become peaceful. And in a sense, aren't we all drowning in the sea of life, right? I mean, we're all drowning in life, aren't we? The mortgage, the job, the kids. It feels like we're all drowning. But when you start to learn how to let go, you realize that we're buoyant, right? That somehow you still carry on. So when we learn how to let go, this grasping is replaced by contentment. These insecurities we feel are replaced by acceptance. And our innate fear is replaced by curiosity. Instead of fearing everything, you become interested in how things work. From this arises a deep contentment, humility, and awe for the mystery and wonder of life. So, I got a question for you all. What kind of things are we grasping in life? Grasping is, Joe asked a question, is grasping the same thing as clinging, craving, greed? It is. They're all the same thing. It's this. I need, I want. That's grasping. What kind of things are we grasping in life?
Our views.
Please don't, not too loud. We don't want to wake Shiva. He works hard. I'm just teasing him. And our views. Oh yeah, don't we though?
Yeah.
That's a good one. Anybody else? Let's run through a few. You're getting graded on participation, everybody. Jen.
Um, I think we grasp at our image. You know, we want people to think of us a certain
We
way.
do.
It's
Thank
very
you.
important to us.
Yeah, identity, right? Anybody else? You don't have to raise your hand. You could just,
What
David?
about?
Yeah,
Oh,
we
go
grasp
ahead, Dave.
okay, we grasp onto life, being alive.
Yeah. Joe?
What about the hope for awakening?
Oh,
In
okay.
fact, that's a really good one because If we grasp on it too strong, it's told that's the very mechanism that would stop us from ever achieving it. You
Right.
have to have a you
That's
have to
what
have a
I've
soft
heard.
you have to have a soft approach to
It's
gaining
confusing.
enlightenment.
It's complicated.
It is. Yeah, we can grasp it good at both good and bad. Imagine, wanting something for your children, and yet you do something nefarious to get it done out of your love for the child. We do a lot of things like that. Miss Emma?
Yeah, I was just going to say, grasping at outcomes, certain outcomes of things going the way we think they should.
Oh, very good. And we grasp at beliefs. We grasp at our fears, don't we? We don't let them go. We worry about them. Oh my God, I'm going to be the last one in line and they'll be all out of Ben and Jerry's by the time I get there. Miss Wamo?
I think one of the most
She's double dipping.
sorry, because I was just thinking one of the most important ones is just grasping at that idea of self, that you're of who we think we are. I think that's a really,
Identity.
yeah.
That's by far the most important. And
Hmm.
according to Buddhism, that's really the cause of the whole problem of samsara and everything. Thank you, everybody, for participating. So, what exactly are we softening? We just talked about what we're grasping, and I agree. Um, we're softening our intentions, our goals, our emotions, our attitudes, our speech, behavior, action, reaction, or our interactions. When we talk about softening our intentions, sometimes we can be very intense at why we want to do things and how they're done. Learning how to just soften our aims. Yes, I'd like this to happen, but it's not that immediate. We can bring patience in. Sounds like we're talking to our children, doesn't it? Children get all worked up, and what do we say? No, it's okay. You'll get it done. Take your time. It's not that important. It won't be that big of a deal. We know how to soften our kids, don't we? I never thought about that. We put a lot of energy into soften our kids because, of course, they get so intense. And this includes we soften through engaging in a soft path and soft practice. As we just shared with Joe, the idea of intense practice is said to be detrimental to awakening, that you can't awaken through it, that the opposite, you actually awaken faster. I have an article I wrote a while back called Letting the Path Do the Work. I'd like to post that to this week's practices. It would be good for everybody to read. So, practices for becoming soft. I got a slide for you. Here's some ideas: meditation, mindfulness, contemplation, of course. Mindful breathing, that slows us down. Slowing down and becoming calmer. Oh, softening, I'm sorry. Mindful breathing softens us. Slowing down and becoming calmer soften us. Practicing goodness and kindness, practicing the four gifts, practicing appreciation, recognizing and embracing beauty in all its forms, cultivating joy, practicing contentment and non reactivity, going into nature. Isn't it true? It just softens our hearts, doesn't it? Spending time with those who love and support us. Exercise. You ever have a really good exercise session and you feel really soft, flexible, mind and body, right? Abiding in presence and stillness. However, our cultivation of the threefold training is the ultimate tool for suffering. As I mentioned, these great masters that were soft, they spent a lifetime in practice to gain that. And they did what through the threefold training. But I think with a little bit of effort, we can possibly attain it a little quicker. Um, so, in SBT, our main practice for softening is our four expressions of softness. A favorite of mine, everybody. This is it. The four expressions of softness. The cultivation of a soft and beautiful mind, soft and beautiful speech, soft and beautiful behavior, and soft and beautiful actions. I could go on and on about the benefits of this. It's one of my main practices. I believe it's extraordinary. Um, it helps us let go of grasping and develop authentic softness. That's the term I was looking for before. Instead of skillful softness and afflicted softness, it should be more authentic softness and afflicted softness. And then besides that, we have, whoops, I need this. We have an affirmation for you. So this, I'll post this. You can include this in your daily affirmations. The four expressions of softness affirmation. Today I will be mindful of the style in which I live my life, embodying goodness, beauty, and joy throughout my day through the cultivation of a soft and beautiful mind, soft and beautiful speech, soft and beautiful behavior, and soft and beautiful actions. I do this with the wish to bring peace, stability, and contentment to all. I'd like to clarify, because people always ask about it, what's the difference between behavior and action? Soft and beautiful behavior is about your style of being, the way you hold yourself. So this isn't necessarily related to action. It can be, but it could be as simple as the way you sit in a chair. You could be slouched over in a sloppy style, mind wandering, or you could sit and be aware of your style, your behavior. You could be sitting there dignified in a beautiful posture, being fully present in the present moment. Can you see the difference between that? That's what I talk about with behavior. It's not walking down the street, it's how you're walking down the street. A slow gait, looking up, nodding at people as you go by. This is behavior, where action is related directly to the deeds that you do, the actions that you do. Any questions about that? Okay. Does everyone understand how our busyness, speediness, and exaggerated sense of immediacy create our grasping? Do you guys get that? Can you see it in your own lives? Can you see it in the life of that 10-year-old? Right? Getting ready to go to school. Right? First of all, they're getting ready to go to school. They're already grouchy because they're thinking about all the stuff that's going to happen. If they're going to get teased, what the kids are going to think about their new shirts, or notice that they have last year's shoes, right? And the world is just so exaggerated. None of it's true. We don't lose that. We're still those kids at heart. We don't do it as bad. But I want everybody this week to look for that. Look if you can see that child still there. We do it. We complain about delivery, or, you know, they're supposed to be here in 20 minutes. It's 24 after. And we think about all these problems that arise, and we think it's going to be the end of the world, let alone watching politics. But, that might be true. Anyways, enough of that silliness. Uh, does does everyone understand that we let go of our grasping through the opposite of calming down, slowing down, cultivating patience, and through letting go and becoming soft, right? So that nutty grasping thing that we talked about is literally samsara. You know, the Dalai Lama often says, samsara is this exaggerated sense of reality, that everything is so important, so immediate. So that child is experiencing samsara in a very intense way. So that is samsara. So now you could see why the power of softness is so important, because it literally helps us to let go of that, huh? Oh. Okay, so if there's no questions, let's wind up our class with a little review. We talked about the topic of style, the style in which we act and live. We define soft style as calm, spacious and gentle, expansive, aware, accepting, flexible, adaptive, and resilient, patient, considerate, and compassionate. We shared that authentic softness is not timid, submissive, or weak, but instead it's wise, mature, and confident. There you go, Jen. And that we soften by calming down, slowing down, cultivating patience, and through letting go of our grasping. We clarified that softness never prevents us from acting decisively when situations call for stronger, more direct, or even aggressive action. Lastly, we shared that this week's main practice is the 4 expressions of softness: a soft and beautiful mind, soft and beautiful speech, soft and beautiful behavior, and soft and beautiful action. In tomorrow's class, lesson 10, we'll be furthering our exploration of the skillful living lifestyle by investigating the 10 tenets of a skillful living lifestyle. Until then, reflect upon what we shared today and start exploring our new practice of the 4 expressions of softness. I think you're going to find when you practice it, you really see a change around you. And I notice the first one that you'll notice the biggest change is soft and beautiful speech. And I think people often aren't ready for it. And because remember, soft and beautiful speech, we're not cursing, we're not criticizing others, we're not giving our opinion all the time of what everybody should do. Soft, beautiful speech. Nothing but beautiful speech comes from you. You're going to really be surprised how that impacts your life. Okay, with that said, always remember I'm a click away for help and support everybody. So let's end today's class with our altruistic affirmation. May all be healthy. May all be prosperous. May all be well. May all be present, free of past regret and future worry. May all abide in constant appreciation, which is the source of great joy and contentment. May all realize their true nature and the true nature of reality, which is awakening. Thanks everybody for coming. Remember that SBT was created for one purpose, to support lovely practitioners like all of you. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a soft day.
Thank you, Venerable Tarpa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara.
Anytime.
Bye,
Bye-bye
Venerable
all.
Tarpa. Bye, everyone.